we're here today to have a joint meeting with the steering committee, with the library board. Myself, Councilmember Fry, and Councilmember Claycomb have been on a steering committee along with the library members of the library board. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin McWhorter. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Blubaugh and City Council, members of the Wichita Library Board. The purpose of the workshop is to review recommendations from a steering committee that has been asked to work on an updated master plan for the branch libraries. As Vice Mayor Blubaugh just mentioned, and I would like to thank also the mayor appointed Vice Mayor Blubaugh from District 4, Council Member Cindy Claycomb from District 6, Brian Fry from District 5. From the Library Board, I appointed Lamont Anderson from District 1, Randy Johnson from District 5, and Shelby Peterson from District 3. Also assisting with our efforts were staff members, City Manager Robert Layton, Library Director Cindy Berner, and Library Customer Service Manager Christy Dow. And I do want to take just a moment very briefly on behalf of the council, the steering committee, and the library board to thank Cindy and Christy for their efforts. We did this very quickly. There was a lot of meetings, and there was a lot of questions that they had to dig up a lot of information to get to us before the next meeting. They did a great job under very, very difficult circumstances, and we want to thank them at this time. Goals of the committee were established. They were to work on updates to an outdated master plan for facilities going back to, I believe, 2005, to address questions about how to add programs and services for the advanced learning library into branches, to respond to 2018 conversations about closing of branch libraries. Some of the goals of the committee and our work were to ensure the branch library system is opening in alignment with community, city, and library adopted priorities and objectives, to review service delivered from each branch before and after opening of the advanced learning library, to see if the advanced learning library made continued operation of any branch location unnecessary. We were to identify and affirm that branch locations provided for equitable access to services and are meeting the needs of the community beyond books. And finally, to establish service priorities for each branch facility. The committee used 3 different documents to guide us in our work. We used the branch review from Wichita State from 2017. We used the architectural review by SPT Architecture from 2018 for each of the 6 branches. And we used the Project Wichita Community Report. Documents were supplemented with updated information about branch use. The City Council has adopted 5 priorities to guide municipal operations. 2 of those priorities, which are identified in dark blue, are directly related to services delivered by branch libraries, which are to grow our economy and provide conditions for living well. As a department, the library also has many activities that relate to the well-run city priority, but since administrative and non-public service operations are centralized in the advanced learning library, this plan focuses on the 2 other priorities only. During the zero-based budgeting process, 3 service pillars were adopted for the library department. These are supporting a literate community, which includes literacy programs, services, and collections for all ages. Ensuring digital inclusion, which is providing public computing services as well as technology training to enable people to use online resources in an informed and efficient manner. And finally, providing equitable access to information. This ensures that all members of the community have access to the information they need to be successful in their lives. Each of the 3 library service pillars has a direct connection to the city priorities of growing our economy and living well. The recently adopted Project Wichita plan has 5 focus areas. 3 of these are initiatives that are positively impacted by each of the library's service pillars. Having affirmed that these library pillars are appropriate for supporting the priorities of the City of Wichita and the community, the committee next focused upon each of the current 6 library branches to consider focus areas that would best serve the residents in their segments of the city. At this time, I would like to introduce council members Cindy Claycomb and Brian Fry.
All right, so we're going to talk about the 6 library branches and talk about the strategies for each of those. So as the committee was meeting, we wanted to think about each branch and how it fits with what's going on at the Advanced Learning Library where we are today. So we wanted to think about, okay, after this great facility is opened, what's happening and how has that affected our branches? And we wanted to recognize that each of our branch libraries has some unique service that it should provide in that neighborhood where it's located, while remaining aligned with the library and the city's missions and service pillars. So I'm going to take the first 3, Alford, Angelo, and Evergreen, and talk about those, and then Councilmember Fry will talk about the other 3 libraries. So the Alford branch, when we looked at this, this is one of 2 areas in the city where incoming kindergartners do not demonstrate school readiness. And so this made us realize that a focus on early literacy and school readiness becomes really important to support the broader community efforts that are aimed at this, to better prepare preschool children for their formal education. So entering school ready is really important, and that's why the focus on early literacy and school readiness. In addition to that, though, graduating on time is really important also to making sure that these young people have success in school and in life. So the public schools in the Alford service area, they have an above average number of students who fail to become high school graduates. So that led to our second focus area of K through 12 student achievement. And in this particular focus area, we recognize that we can align our programs with other programs such as the Wichita Westside Promise Neighborhoods Coalition. That coalition focuses on alleviating chronic absenteeism for students. And also United Ways Read to Succeed, and again, something that helps contribute to students graduating. So our second focus area is in that particular area. And then finally, in this area, around this branch library, there are a significant number of people who use public computing to seek and apply for jobs. So we decided that expanding the branch's partnership with the Workforce Alliance would be our third focus area, and that's in the area of workforce development. And so what we want to look at here is to enable this branch library to more effectively serve job seekers who cannot easily access or use the services of the Workforce Center. Okay. So Alfred has some facility needs. The first is new street signage. So, you know, when that library went in, there was really nothing but just vacant land between the fire station and interstate, and now that's all built up, and so we get kind of lost in there. So we need new street signage. We also need some seating. The seating needs to be conducive to longer periods of setting for these education activities and for workforce support, and more collaborative spaces are needed. As in every one of these that we talk about, more electrical outlets are needed. Better acoustics are needed here. And at Alford, if we could do some updates long-term, these long-term upgrades, these are things that would help make this library much more modern and appealing in appearance. The Angelo Northeast Branch, this is the second area in Wichita where children are not entering school with the skills that they need. So the focus here, the very first focus area, is literacy and school readiness, again, helping prepare children for their formal education. This library also sits in a neighborhood that has the largest concentration of African American residents. And so our second focus area is on African American culture. And this is really a desire for a renewed focus on that culture. And what we're looking at here is expanding the book, music, and movie collections by African American artists and authors, adding reference works that document that neighborhood history, and creating more programming activities for residents to celebrate their culture. The third focus area is digital inclusion. So data show us that residents in this area are some of the ones that are least likely to have access to computers and the internet. They have portable devices, but not necessarily the data plans that are needed to access the internet. So focus on digital inclusion for this particular branch will ensure connectivity and the building of data literacy skills. And then finally, a second tier activity in this particular branch is workforce development. And really this is to support partnerships that will assist a relatively large number of residents in this area who are unemployed. The facility updates that are needed here at Angelo, in particular, the customer service desk really needs work. It's too tall, so it doesn't accommodate ADA accessibility, and it's not the right height for all customers of all ages. So customers that are younger sometimes have trouble with the service desk there. We also need comfortable seating at this branch. Again, parents and children in the children's play area need more comfortable seating, and there just needs to be better seating for reading and studying and meeting in small groups. Power poles are needed here also. Probably, we have that in long term. I bet that's even in short term, so those electrical outlets. And then the third branch I'm going to cover today is the Evergreen Branch. And this branch is, the work we're doing here is just a little bit different in that we're looking at the Evergreen facility as a campus. And so where the library is located, there's also, in addition to the library, there's a neighborhood center, a recreation center, Cloud Elementary School is there, Grace Med Clinic is there, and TOPS, the Early Learning Project. And so the focus area and priorities here are driven by plans to renovate the city's neighborhood center at that location, and most likely co-locate the neighborhood center with the library. I really want to create, if you've read the Project Wichita findings, one of the things they talk about there is anchor institutions. And so we're thinking about, okay, how do we create an anchor institution for this particular neighborhood? So the first focus area here, based on community engagement and WSU's branch library review, it suggests programs and collections that support multi-generational literacy. So that is our first focus area here. This branch library sits in a neighborhood where there is a large Hispanic population, and so Hispanic education becomes a second focus area for this particular library. And then our digital inclusion, the residents around this particular library also are among Wichita's least likely to have access to computers and internet, much like around Angelo. And so, again, have portable devices, but not the data plans that are needed to support online access. So this digital inclusion becomes very important in terms of teaching those digital literacy skills. And then we have two second-tier focus areas for this particular library, and these are really in support of what we are doing with the revitalization and renovation at the neighborhood center, because that focus is really on career and workforce readiness and small business and early entrepreneurship support. And so those two second-tier activities become important as we decide what that co-location will look like and how the library becomes a resource hub for those activities that we want to do with the neighborhood center. This branch also has some facility needs, but because we are renovating the neighborhood center, and as I said, most likely co-locating with the library, that building will be renovated and we'll think about what that looks like. And so we really need with that co-location to think about shared public computing. So Evergreen has the highest technologies per visit of any of our branches. And so that shared public computing becomes really important. We need shared co-working space for collaboration, tutoring, business meetings. And then we also have to figure out, okay, the shared and dedicated spaces that are needed to support the library programming and services, what's going on with the neighborhood center in terms of services that are provided there, and non-city of Wichita agencies that are there to support this early entrepreneurship and career and workforce readiness. So we don't know exactly what that looks like at this point, but we are working in that regard. And then there are just a variety of facility updates needed in the library configuration that need to be addressed no matter what. And again, comfortable seating, electrical capacity, and a service desk redesign. So I'm going to now turn it over to Councilmember Fry to talk about the next three branches.
Thank you. I think you're going to hear a lot of the similar themes and needs with all the branches, but I'm going to focus on Linwood, Rockwell, and Westlink. So as you probably realize, Linwood is the smallest facility in the system, and it operates inside the Linwood Recreation Center, which makes it difficult to find, to access, and to even do very simple things like programming and children's activities. The space is extremely limited, and you have very limited hours, reduced staffing, small collections. But despite all that, it's become very successful in being able to use as a computing hub and as a place for popular materials. And that's where we've seen some really strong gains. And it's a very family-focused center with the area needing using it very well, and in conjunction with the rec center, it's become popular with older residents as well. But it is challenged, and we know that because, again, it is the hardest to find in limited space. I jumped ahead a little bit. I lost my slide. So the biggest thing that we found with Linwood is it's probably the most need of a business model change in order to increase its usefulness to the neighborhood it serves. Again, with those limited abilities and capabilities, they just can't serve the neighborhood the way it needs to be. And so we looked at a possible bigger, larger location with space for computers, children's programming, and a greater emphasis on the popular materials so that it can serve its goals of those two priority needs. Staff has already gone so far as to look at some other possible locations, including the old Wichita Mall, the Clapp Golf Course, Clubhouse, and others near the Harry and Oliver intersections. This is just a very underutilized space. We know that it could probably do a lot better if it had the right needs, and it's just not possible to do it in its current location. The next one is the Ford Rockwell Branch. And Rockwell and Westlink are basically very similar stories. They are mini versions of the advanced learning libraries, this facility here, because they are full service branches capable of servicing a variety of service priorities. In fact, these Rockwell branch priorities are the same for Westlink, and that they serve a large area in both size and population. Rockwell is also one of those branches that is used for reference questions quite a bit because so many schools utilize it, as well as the closing of the Comatera branch when it moved out of the Dillon's grocery store. That added even more diversity and demand to the service area for Rockwell. It too is challenged with some of the service needs and the ability of the facility because of things like electrical outlets and technology capability, and just not being able to grow and service the needs of the people that are using it. And so we identified not only the short-term facility updates, but also the long-term things. And these are some things you've heard already in some of the other branches: circulation desk, shelving, just making it a more inviting facility. Rockwell is cramped upon cramped. There are people on top of people, and more efficient use of space, brightening the area, giving it some more TLC that would allow it to continue to service. It's a textbook neighborhood model. It's a facility that's very well known where it's at, its location. In the long term, will that location continue to serve the population area that it's currently serving? That's something we'd have to look at as well. But right now, these short-term and long-terms would make it a much more inviting place and more accessible for those service priorities. Westlink, similar to the Rockwell Branch, but on steroids. This is the branch library that, until this facility opened, usually had 25% of all checkouts and service needs, and it still does. 1 in 3 customers using the branch services do so through the Westlink Branch. And as it relates to service for children, 1 in 3 children involved in the library's summer reading program does so through the Westlink Branch. And so it continues to have a great children's programming, but we have to turn people away because there's not enough space. It too is cramped, people on top of people, and facility it's got service desk circulation challenges. But we know to build a brand new facility somewhere else has challenges as well. Primarily, there is a deed conveyance to the Westlink branch that stipulates that the property would revert back to the adjacent church if the city no longer used it as a library. So if we decided to build somewhere else or relocate, we would lose that opportunity. So with that, we took a look at expanding the current footprint because there is room on the property to expand to the south. And we can nearly double the size and also reconfigure the parking lot because that is also a challenge. Because of the success of the programming at that facility, parking is usually in a very high demand and not enough space. And so we looked at, our architects, SPT, looked at expanding that facility to the south, building off the current footprint and mimicking the original design and redoing the parking lot. That is about $2.3 million. So it's considerably cheaper than building an entirely new footprint from the ground up when you'd have to, 20,000 square foot facility and adjacent parking and property cost. So again, Rockwell and Westlink are very similar stories in that they are great places that you can start a program here or try something at all and then easily push it out to those branch libraries because they are mini versions of this one. That's all I have.
Before we continue, I have the honor of serving as the library board president this year and also chair the steering committee. But I would like to speak to the council and let you know that your library board has significantly changed since I was appointed by Council Vice Mayor Blubaugh 5 years ago. It's gone by pretty quickly. I currently serve with only 2 members who were board members at the time that I was appointed. As a whole, today's board is younger, more diverse, and brings significantly more business and professional experience to the table, particularly in the area of education, as we have 2 superintendents on the board now, 1 sitting school board member, and a number of board members who have significant K-12 experience in their own lives. I appreciate and thank the council for the quality of the board which you have assembled. Each member brings unique skills and are valuable contributors to what the council is asking us to do on a day-to-day basis. As the steering committee's work shows, each library branch is an important and anchoring institution within their local community. We recognize that each branch is unique in how it serves the local community and that each branch cannot be all things to all people. However, we must remember that all libraries share one common main goal of enhancing literacy, particularly childhood literacy. The Library Board and Steering Committee agree the Advanced Learning Library and branches must focus efforts on collaboration with the Wichita School District and with the no less than 6 suburban school districts that have boundaries within the city of Wichita proper. We are all aware and have seen the studies which clearly show the future long-term costs to the community when our children do not acquire the necessary reading skills by the 3rd grade. The state of Kansas is providing additional funding. The local school districts are receiving that funding and are making commitments to early childhood literacy and pre-K education within our community. We must be part of that conversation. It's important. It's important to the future of the city. We can do this through partnerships and collaboration with the schools and by providing programming at our local library branches to reach those kids before they fall behind. It is critical and a critical investment in Wichita's future. We know how easy it is to do a lot of work, complete the plans, and then have them end up gathering dust on the shelf. To ensure that this does not happen with this plan, we have identified 5 years of benchmarks to encourage progress and the implementation of the recommendations from your steering committee. In the first year, we will submit all facility updates into the capital improvement program. Staff will prioritize collection reviews for the Evergreen and Linwood branches, since these are the 2 projects which we expect to be implemented more quickly. We will work with those coordinating the Evergreen Complex Plan to finalize the facility update needs at Evergreen, and we will narrow options to identify a preferred location for the Linwood Branch. In 2020, staff will initiate process reviews for all locations. Many lean improvements have been made in recent years in order to obtain necessary budget savings, but revisiting operations in light of changing conditions resulting from the opening of the Advanced Learning Library and through the lens of the service priorities may enable staff to identify additional process improvements. Also in 2020, collection reviews will occur at the Alford and Angelo branches, and facility updates would be completed at Evergreen. Linwood would be relocated, and an improved signage for Alford would also be installed. Since preparing this presentation, it has been suggested that improved signage is also needed for Rockwell and Linwood. You will note these additions on the handout we have provided to you today. Cost for these signs has not been determined at this time. Our goals in 2021 would be the completion of the Westlink Branch and completion of short-term updates at Alford, Angelo, and Rockwell. We would also have collection reviews, which would continue for Rockwell and Westlink, and staffing and hour study at the Angelo Branch would also be completed in there. In 2022, long-term updates would be initiated at Angelo and Rockwell. In 2023, the last part of this plan would be implemented, which would be long-term updates for Alford, and that would be completed and a new planning cycle would begin. This concludes the presentation. At this time, we will be happy to open up to the community for any questions and answers. If you do have some questions, we have Director of Libraries, Cindy Berner here, and Christy Dow. So does anybody have any questions that we would like to take in at this time?
I've got one. Real quick on the Angelo Branch on the short-term facility updates. Do we know how much the wayfinding will be?
I don't think there was.
Councilmember Johnson, in the information that we got from SPT architecture, Their wayfinding, that's internal wayfinding, and it was estimated at $3,000.
Okay, so that's not like outdoor signage or anything?
That is not an outdoor sign in that location. They did not identify that as a recommended.
Okay, I was just wondering because we saw last night at DAB that there's going to be a partnership with the Shocker neighborhood for wayfinding signs and didn't want to duplicate that, if that was the case.
No, this was inside the building.
Jonathan?
Would it be possible to expand Westlink on the current site without running into drainage problems?
Councilmember Frye, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
I don't remember that that was a concern of our architect when he went through this review and the design. It would have to meet the current standards before we could do anything, so it wasn't raised as a red flag, but we could certainly make sure that that would be addressed.
We're taking notes, sir. Other questions, comments, concerns?
Maybe one more thing. I realize this could be pie in the sky, but as we are doing these updates of our facilities, again, looking at Maya Angelou, I know Evergreen may get combined, but can we look at cultural murals on these buildings? So right now, when I look at Maya Angelou, I do see a brick building, but I don't see any murals of Maya or any of her work. Maybe at Rockwell, if there's something significant about that, but it just adds another unique component to our branch libraries for the community. And I don't know what the additional cost would be, but if there's a way to work some of that into the updates and improvements, I would definitely like to see that.
Great point. What we'll do is we'll take some of these suggestions down. It's likely that we'll probably get the steering committee back together to take into consideration anything, new information or comments such as yours that we can then implement and get an answer back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Hearing none, what I would like to do is turn it back over to Vice Mayor Blueball to close out the meeting.
Okay, all right. We don't have any other questions, we have any other action items? Okay. Well, thank you guys very much, everybody, for coming here today, sharing the experience, and proceed on. Thank you, guys.